Ambassador Krelvac stood before the Galactic Council, his 4 arms trembling slightly. The crystalline structure of his body flickered with colors that showed his deep concern. Around him, representatives from 12 different species watched with equal parts fear and fascination. "The report is complete," Krelvac said, his voice translating through the universal communication system. "We have spent 3 standard years studying human negotiation methods. The findings are disturbing." A murmur spread through the chamber. The Vorthan delegate, a being made of shifting shadows, leaned forward. "Disturbing. The humans have only been part of the galactic community for 50 of their years. How dangerous could their methods be?" Krelvac placed a data crystal on the central platform. The holographic display activated, showing countless recordings, transcripts, and analysis documents. "Let me tell you about the first time we observed them," Krelvac began. "It was at the Nexus trade agreement. We thought we understood negotiation. We were wrong." The hologram shifted to show a memory from 3 years ago. A young human woman named Sarah Chen sat across from representatives of the Mordix Corporation, one of the most powerful trading entities in the galaxy. The Mordix were known for their harsh business practices. They had destroyed entire economies with their deals. Sarah Chen looked small compared to the massive Mordix delegates. Their bodies were covered in thick armor plates, and their eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. "We offer 15,000 galactic credits per unit," the lead Mordix negotiator said. His name was Thrux, and he was famous for never losing a negotiation. "This is generous. You should accept immediately." Sarah smiled. It was a pleasant smile, but there was something behind it that made Krelvac uncomfortable even watching the recording years later. "Thank you for your offer," Sarah said. "Before we continue, would you like some coffee? I noticed you traveled far, and I want to make sure you are comfortable." The Mordix exchanged confused looks. No one had ever offered them comfort during negotiations. "We do not require refreshment," Thrux said. "Of course." Sarah opened a folder in front of her. "I have been reading about the Mordix Corporation. Very impressive history. You started as a small mining operation 200 years ago, correct?" Thrux's armor plate shifted. "Yes, this is known." "Your founder, Drax the First, he had a philosophy. Something about fair exchange creating lasting partnerships. I found it beautiful." The room went silent. The Mordix delegates stared at Sarah with expressions that even Krelvac could not read. "How do you know of Drax's teachings?" Thrux asked. His voice was different now, less aggressive. "I did my research. I believe in understanding the people I work with." Sarah closed the folder. "Now about your offer. 15,000 credits is below market value, but I understand why you started there. You are testing us. That is fair." Thrux said nothing. "Here is what I propose," Sarah continued. "Instead of a simple purchase agreement, we create a partnership. We provide the technology at 25,000 credits per unit, but we also give Mordix Corporation exclusive distribution rights in 3 sectors. In exchange, you share your expertise in large-scale manufacturing." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This way, we both grow stronger, just as Drax the First intended his company to operate." The negotiation continued for several more hours, but Krelvac knew the outcome was decided in that first exchange. The final deal was worth 3 times what the Mordix originally offered, and both sides left satisfied. Krelvac paused the hologram. "Do you see what happened there?" The Vorthan delegate flickered uncertainly. "She got a better price. That is basic negotiation." "No," Krelvac said. "She did something far more complex. She researched her opponent's culture. She showed respect for their history. She made them feel understood. And then she connected her proposal to their own values." A Zealoth representative, a being of pure energy, pulsed with confusion. "Why is this terrifying? It seems like simple kindness." "Because kindness is a weapon when used correctly," Krelvac replied. The Mordics came prepared to fight. They had strategies for aggression, for threats, for demands. They had no defense against being respected. He activated the next segment of his presentation. This was just the beginning. As we studied more human negotiations, we discovered they have hundreds of these tactics. They call them by strange names: active listening, empathy building, finding common ground, creating win-win solutions. Other species negotiate to win. Humans negotiate to make everyone believe they have won. The result is the same, but humans gain something more valuable than any single deal. What do they gain? The Vorthan asked. Krelvax's crystal body darkened with worry. They gain loyalty, trust, long-term relationships. The Mordics Corporation is now one of Earth's strongest allies, all from one meeting where a human woman offered coffee and quoted an old founder's philosophy. The council chamber buzzed with concerned conversation. Species that had existed for millions of years suddenly felt uncertain about their place in galactic politics. But surely, a Prixon delegate said, their tentacles waving nervously, we can adapt. We can learn these tactics too. Krelvax shook his head slowly. That is the second terrifying discovery. We tried. For 2 years, we trained our best diplomats in human methods. We studied their books, their history, their psychology. He brought up comparison data on the display. The results were disappointing. Our diplomats could perform the actions, but they could not achieve the same outcomes. What was missing? The Prixon asked. Authenticity, Krelvax said. Humans do not use these tactics as tricks. They genuinely believe in them. When Sarah Chen showed respect for Mordics history, she truly felt that respect. He let that sink in before continuing. We discovered that human children are taught these skills from birth. They call it social intelligence. They learn to read emotions, to understand perspectives different from their own, to build connections with strangers. By the time they are adults, these behaviors are automatic. The Zealoth representative pulsed rapidly. So their entire species is trained in advanced diplomatic warfare from childhood. In a way, yes, but they do not see it as warfare. They see it as basic communication. To them, understanding others is simply how living beings should interact. Krelvax brought up another recording. This brings me to my third observation, the most terrifying one. The hologram showed a human named Marcus Williams sitting in a prisoner exchange negotiation. Across from him were the Krath, a warrior species known for taking hostages during border disputes. The Krath negotiator, a scarred veteran named Voreth, looked at Marcus with contempt. We have your people. You will give us what we want or they will suffer. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand your position, Voreth. You feel that your people have been wronged by border agreements made before either of us was involved. You see these hostages as leverage to correct an historical injustice. Voreth's mandibles clicked in surprise. You understand our reasons. I try to. War is easy, understanding is hard. Marcus leaned forward slightly. May I ask you something personal? The Krath guards tensed. Voreth waved them down, curious despite himself. You have offspring. I have 3 younglings, Voreth said cautiously. Why do you ask? I was looking at the files of our captured colonists. One of them, Dr. Elena Voss, she has 2 children waiting for her on Earth. They are young. They do not understand why their mother has not come home. Marcus pulled out a small holographic image showing 2 human children. These are her children. Their names are Michael and Anna. They asked me to bring their mother back. Voreth stared at the image. Something changed in his expression. I also have something for you, Marcus continued. He placed another holographic projector on the table. Your youngest child. He has been accepted into the prestigious Krath Science Academy. Congratulations. The Krath negotiator froze. How do you know about my son's application? I pay attention to the people I negotiate with. Your son sounds very smart. You must be proud. I am, Voreth whispered. Then you understand what Dr. Voss's children feel. The fear, the hope, the desperate wish to see their parent again. The room was silent for a long moment. What do you propose? Voreth finally asked, his voice softer than before. Let me help you get what your people actually need, Marcus said. Not territory, resources, economic development, a future for younglings like your son. Krelvex paused the recording. Marcus Williams did not threaten. He did not manipulate. He simply made Voreth see the captured humans as real people with families just like his own. What was the outcome? The Vorthan delegate asked. The hostages were released within 3 days. The Krath and humans signed a development agreement 2 weeks later. There has not been a single incident between the two species in 8 years. Krelvax stepped away from the display. This is what terrifies me. Humans can walk into a room full of hostile warriors and walk out with new friends and trade partners. They do not conquer through force. They conquer through connection. But that sounds good, the Prixon delegate said. Why should we fear a species that prefers peace? Krelvax's crystals flickered with complex emotions. Because we have spent millions of years developing our galactic order based on strength, intimidation, and calculated self-interest. In 50 short years, humans have shown us there might be a better way, and many of us do not know how to exist in that kind of galaxy. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over them. My report continues with many more examples, Krelvax said, but the conclusion is simple. Human negotiation tactics are not just effective, they are transformative. Every species that negotiates with humans extensively eventually becomes their ally. He gathered his materials and prepared to leave. The question before this council is not how to counter human diplomacy. We have tried, and we have failed. The question is whether we are ready to learn from them, or whether we will watch as they quietly reshape the entire galaxy through the simple, terrifying power of treating others with respect. Ambassador Krelvax left the chamber, leaving behind a council of ancient species suddenly feeling very young indeed. 3 months after Krelvax's presentation to the Galactic Council, a special committee was formed to conduct deeper research into human negotiation practices. Krelvax was asked to lead this committee, along with representatives from 5 other major species. The committee decided that watching recordings was not enough. They needed to observe humans in real time, so they traveled to Earth, to the city called Geneva. Their guide was a human diplomat named James Foster. He was tall and thin, with gray hair that suggested many years of experience. His eyes were calm but always watching. "Welcome to Earth," James said as he met the delegation. "I hope your journey was comfortable." Krelvax noted how James immediately asked about their comfort, just like Sarah Chen had done in the recording. Was this deliberate, or was it simply how humans communicated? The journey was acceptable, the Zealoth representative pulsed. "We are eager to begin our observations." James smiled warmly. "Of course, but first, perhaps some refreshment. I have prepared accommodations suited to each of your biological needs. The Zealoth quarters have enhanced energy fields. Ambassador Krelvax, your rooms maintain the specific light spectrum your crystalline form prefers." The delegation exchanged surprised looks. James had researched their individual requirements before they arrived. "This is unnecessary," the Vorthan delegate said. "We are here to work, not to be pampered." "With respect," James replied gently, "important work requires clear minds. I want your research to be as accurate as possible, which means I want you to be at your best." Krelvax sensed something more. James was already building a relationship with them. He was showing that he cared about their well-being. Terrifying, Krelvax thought, absolutely terrifying. The first observation session took place 2 days later. The committee watched a negotiation between Earth and the Prelian Collective. The Prelians were a hive-minded species known for being extremely slow in making decisions. The human negotiation team was led by Dr. Maria Santos. Her assistants set up the room with careful attention to detail. "Notice the seating arrangement," James whispered to the observers. "Maria has placed the Prelian delegates in a curved formation that allows them to maintain visual contact with each other. This helps their collective consciousness function more smoothly." "She knows about their group mind?" the Prixan delegate asked. "She spent 6 months studying Prelian society before this meeting. She visited their worlds, participated in their ceremonies, and learned to recognize their subtle signals." The negotiation began. The Prelians wanted to establish a colony in a sector of space that humans had claimed but not developed. "We appreciate you meeting with us," Dr. Santos began. "Before we discuss the territory question, I want to acknowledge something important." The Prelian delegates shifted slightly, their antennae twitching in unified patterns. "The sector you are interested in contains a nebula that produces specific radiation frequencies," Dr. Santos continued. "We have learned that these frequencies are spiritually significant to your collective. They help strengthen the bonds between your members." The Prelians went still. "You know of the sacred frequencies?" their speaker asked. "Yes, and we understand that without access to them, your younger generations may struggle to fully integrate into your collective consciousness. We would never want to harm the spiritual health of your people." Krelvax leaned toward James. "How did she learn this? We have studied the Prelians for centuries and never discovered this." James smiled slightly. "She asked them, directly. They told her things they had never told other species because she asked with genuine curiosity, not strategic intent." The final agreement was creative. Humans would maintain official control of the sector, but Prelian vessels would have unlimited ceremonial access to the nebula. In exchange, the Prelians would share their expertise in collective decision-making. Both sides left the table satisfied. "She did not beat them," the zealot observer pulsed thoughtfully. "She helped them." "Yes," James agreed. "That is the core of human negotiation philosophy. We do not see negotiations as competitions. We see them as collaborative problem-solving." "But she still got what Earth wanted," the Vorthan delegate pointed out. "True, but consider what Earth also gained. A grateful ally, access to valuable knowledge, a reputation among Prelian-allied species as fair and trustworthy." James spread his hands. "Short-term victories are worth less than long-term relationships." The committee observed 12 more negotiations over the following weeks. Each one demonstrated different aspects of human diplomatic skill. They watched a trade dispute where the human negotiator spent the first hour simply apologizing for misunderstandings, never defending the original mistakes. They watched a territorial conflict where the human team brought historical research showing both sides had legitimate claims, then proposed shared governance. They watched a hostage situation where the human negotiator built such strong rapport that the captors eventually released the hostages and asked for asylum on Earth. "I am beginning to understand," Krelvax said one evening. "Human negotiation is not about tactics, it is about genuine connection." "Explain," the Prixan delegate requested. "When we try to copy their methods, we fail because we are performing behaviors without feeling the emotions behind them. Humans do not pretend to care. They actually care." "This seems like a weakness," the Vorthan delegate argued. "That is what makes them dangerous," Krelvax replied. "They have redefined what advantage means. To them, the best outcome is one where everyone benefits and wants to work together again." James spoke up. "May I share something? I have been a diplomat for 32 years. Do you know what I consider my greatest successes?" "The most profitable deals," the Prixan guessed. "No, my greatest successes are the times when, years later, my former opponents contacted me personally, to invite me to celebrations, to share good news about their families. James's eyes grew warm with memory. The Mordic's representative from Sarah Chen's negotiation. His grandchild was just born. He sent us an announcement. The committee members struggled to understand. You stay connected to them. The Zealoth pulsed with confusion. Of course, they are not opponents. They are partners we have not fully aligned with yet. Every negotiation is an opportunity to build bridges. And if the other party truly wants something you cannot give, then we work to understand why they want it. Often, what people say they want is not what they actually need. A species that demands territory might actually need security. If we address the underlying need, we usually find a path forward. The committee concluded their observation mission 2 weeks later. They returned to the Galactic Council with a new report. Human negotiation tactics are effective, Krelvax began, because they are rooted in authentic concern for all parties involved. They cannot be easily copied because they require genuine emotional investment. He outlined the key principles they had identified: deep research into the other party's culture, active listening, empathy building, focus on underlying needs, creative problem-solving, and long-term relationship building. But our most important finding is that human methods are not impossible for other species to learn. They simply require us to change how we think about negotiation itself. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates dismissed the idea as naive. Others expressed interest. A few admitted their species had already begun experiencing the effects of human diplomacy. The Mordic's representative stood to speak. When humans first approached us, we were preparing to crush them. They were weak, young, insignificant. He paused. Instead, a young human woman treated us with respect. She honored our founder's memory. My corporation is now more successful than at any point in our history. He looked at the assembled delegates. I do not know if human methods will work for everyone, but we have nothing to lose by trying. The old ways have brought us endless conflicts. Perhaps it is time to see if there is something better. The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they passed a resolution to establish an academy for diplomatic innovation, where species could learn human-inspired negotiation techniques. James Foster was invited to serve as the Academy's first director. He accepted, with one condition: representatives from every species must be included in the teaching staff. We do not want you to become human, James explained at the opening ceremony. We want you to become the best versions of yourselves, and we want to learn from you in return. Krelvax attended as the Academy's first enrolled student. As James spoke, Krelvax felt something unexpected. Hope. Not cautious hope, but genuine hope for a better future. 5 years passed since the Academy opened. Krelvax, now the Academy's senior research coordinator, sat in his office reviewing reports. Interstellar conflicts had decreased by 40%. Trade agreements lasted 3 times longer. The galaxy was transforming. A knock came at his door. "Come in, James," he called. James stepped into the office, looking older but somehow more alive than ever. "Good morning, Ambassador. I have news. The Hive Collective has requested our help mediating a dispute with the Solari Federation." Krelvax's crystal structure flickered with surprise. The Hive and Solari had been in Cold War for over 2,000 years. What changed? The Solari representative saw a recording of our mediation with the Thornax and Verdani. She said watching it made her realize peace was actually possible. That is significant, Krell observed. But the Hive-Solari conflict is far more complex. Religious differences, territorial claims, historical grievances. I know. That is why I want you to lead the mediation team. Krell's crystalline form flared with color. Me, but I am not human. Exactly. You understand both our methods and non-human perspectives. You can bridge worlds we cannot. It is time to show what you can do." For a long moment, Krell sat in silence. 5 years ago, he had been terrified of human diplomacy. Now he was being asked to lead a mediation that could end a 2,000-year conflict. "I will need a diverse team," Krell said. "Human mediators, but also Prellians for their collective wisdom, and perhaps a Mordix observer to demonstrate that old enemies can become allies." James nodded approvingly. "Build your team. You have full authority." The mediation began on a neutral space station. The Hive delegation entered first. They were insectoid beings communicating through chemical signals. Their leader, Broodmother 7, had mandibles that clicked with barely contained hostility. The Solari delegation followed. They were beings of concentrated light. Their leader, Radiance Prime, blazed so brightly that special filters had been installed. Both delegations refused to look at each other. Krell stepped into the center of the room. His crystalline form caught and refracted light, creating rainbows that connected everyone present. "Thank you for coming," he began. "I know this is difficult. For 2,000 years, your peoples have been in conflict. The grievances on both sides are real and painful." He paused, letting his words settle. "I am Krellvax of the crystalline consciousness. 5 years ago, I came to Earth convinced that human methods were a threat. I was wrong." Both delegations watched him with guarded attention. "Human methods are based on a simple principle. Every being deserves to be understood and respected, even those we disagree with." Radiance Prime's light flickered. "Pretty words, but the Hive has murdered millions of our people." Broodmother 7's antennae vibrated angrily. "The Solari burned our breeding worlds." "You are both right," Krell said softly. "Nothing can undo the past. The pain is real." He turned to face both delegations directly. "What I am suggesting is that you have a choice about the future. You can continue the conflict for another 2,000 years, or you can try something different, something that requires more courage than any battle." "What courage?" Broodmother 7 demanded. "The courage to see each other as beings rather than enemies." Then Lisa Park, his human advisor, spoke. "Broodmother 7, may I ask you something? When you look at your younglings, what do you hope for them?" Broodmother 7 was silent for a long moment. "I hope they will know safety. I hope they will never experience the terror of Solari fire falling from the sky." Lisa turned to Radiance Prime. "And you?" "I hope they will burn bright with purpose. I hope they will know peace." "Safety and peace," Lisa said softly. "You both want the same thing for your children." The delegation slowly turned to look at each other. For the first time, they truly saw their opponents as beings with families, with fears, with hopes. The mediation continued for 7 months. There were setbacks, moments when both sides nearly walked away, but each time they reached the breaking point, someone found a way to reconnect them. Slowly, agreements emerged: a permanent ceasefire, territorial boundaries with buffer zones, resource-sharing arrangements, a joint memorial acknowledging losses on both sides. And most remarkably, a cultural exchange program. Young Hive drones would visit Solari worlds. Young Solari would spend time in Hive colonies. When the final agreement was signed, Krell stood at the observation window, watching Hive and Solari vessels departing together for the first time in history. Lisa joined him. "You did it." "We did it," Krell corrected. "This was never about one person." "Can I ask you something? When you first came to Earth, what scared you most?" "I was afraid of losing my certainty. I had spent my life understanding the galaxy as a place of competition and conflict. Your methods suggested everything I believed might be wrong. And now I understand that being wrong was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was trapped in a small understanding. Your people showed me the universe is much larger, much more beautiful than I had imagined." 10 years after the Academy opened, Krellvax received an invitation. The Galactic Council requested his presence to receive the Peacemaker Medallion, the highest honor for contributions to galactic harmony. The council chamber was packed when he delivered his findings. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered. The council speaker began. Ambassador Krelvax, when you first addressed this council, you called human negotiation methods terrifyingly effective. You warned us they would reshape the galaxy. You were correct. Gentle laughter moved through the chamber. In 10 years, you have helped mediate 47 major conflicts. You have trained thousands of diplomats from across the galaxy. The speaker held out the Peacemaker Medallion. For these achievements, we present you with this honor. Krell accepted it with trembling arms. I do not deserve this alone, he said. Everything I accomplished I learned from others, from the humans who showed me a different way, from my fellow Academy members, from every being I negotiated with. He held up the medallion. This belongs to all of us, to every being who has chosen understanding over conflict, cooperation over competition. He looked at the human delegation. Humans are young by galactic standards, but in 60 years, they have shown us that treating others with genuine respect is not weakness. It is the greatest strength there is. After the ceremony, Krell found James quietly observing the gathering. Thank you, Krell said, for everything. James smiled. For what? For showing me the door existed at all. Do you know what I find most remarkable? James asked. When we first made contact, we were terrified. You were all so advanced. We were sure you would destroy us. He laughed softly. Instead, you studied us, and eventually decided we had something worth learning. Your diplomatic methods. More than that, our hope, our stubborn belief that things could get better. James looked at the mingling crowd. The galaxy did not need our technology. You had plenty. What you needed was our perspective. A young Hive delegate approached them. She had participated in the cultural exchange with the Solari. Ambassador Krelvax, Director Foster, I wanted to thank you personally. Before the peace, I never knew any Solari. They were just monsters who wanted to destroy my hive. She paused, her antennae moving with emotion. Last month I attended a Solari light ceremony. They invited me into their sacred space. I saw how they grieve just as we do. I saw how they love their young ones just as we do. I saw that they are not monsters. They are people. She bowed and moved away. James and Krell stood in silence. That, Krell finally said, is why we do this work. Yes, that is why. Krell thought about the journey that had brought him here. The fear, the amazement, the struggle to learn new ways, the joy of watching others transform. James, do you remember what you told me about long-term relationships being more valuable than short-term victories? I remember. I understand now. The galaxy is a conversation. Every interaction adds to it. Our job is not to win arguments. Our job is to keep the conversation going, to make it deeper and richer. James smiled with contentment. Humans have a saying, Krell continued. Something about planting trees whose shade you will never enjoy. We plant trees for future generations. That is beautiful and terrifying and wonderful. He looked around the chamber, seeing not just the beings present but all the generations yet to come. I think I finally understand why human negotiation methods are so effective. It is not because they are clever. It is because they are patient. You plant seeds and trust others will water them. You build foundations and trust others will construct buildings. James nodded. That is exactly right, and now you are one of the gardeners. Krell looked at the Peacemaker Medallion. It was more than an award. It was a responsibility. I will tend this garden, he promised. I will plant more seeds. I will keep the conversations going. I know you will. That is why when I am gone, the galaxy will be in good hands. As the reception continued, Krell felt profound peace. Not the peace of victory, but the peace of connection. The peace of a galaxy slowly learning to understand itself. And it had all started with humans, those strange young beings who had the audacity to believe everyone deserved respect. Terrifyingly effective indeed, Krell thought, and he would not have it any other way.